for me at the beginning was about convincing myself it was okay to learn this later on in my career because I was already approaching 30 years old.
Si estás aburrido de tu trabajo,
Entonces, ¿por qué no estás en el mundo de los datos?
Alright, so I think you've kind of mentioned this before, but what would you say, like, I think I know what it could be from my point of view, but I also want to understand, what do you think is the most important skill for working in big data, working in data science, with your profile and your experience, and how do you come to learn it? Because it sounds like at least one of them was your ability to know where you bring the value and how you fit into this world, but perhaps you have more skills that you think were key in your successful path towards data science.
Yeah. Okay, so I would suggest to break the question down a little bit more because the answer really depends on the career track you want to follow.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So in your experience. Mm-hmm.
In my experience, when I think about product management, the key thing is to understand a little bit of both worlds. So you need to understand the tech side and you need to understand the business side and be the connector in between the two. So you need to be able to talk to the engineers, to talk to the developers and understand their language, which is why I say you need to gain programming knowledge.
Right.
Even if it's a short course like a bootcamp or online courses, you need to understand a little bit about the language. And then on the other hand, you need to have business understanding, and this is the most important thing probably because you need to talk to the stakeholders, understand what are their needs. Well, first of all, you need to understand the business objectives as a whole, because anything you develop in a company, it's geared towards that.
Yeah, I'm finding that as well.
Exactly. Do you want to reduce the cost of acquisitions for your business? Do you want to increase the sales? Do you want to, whatever objective you have, then you're going to build a product that gears toward that, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, absolutely.
So this is very important. And then also you need to be able to talk to the stakeholders, and by stakeholders I mean the people who are responsible for a specific area.
Okay,
and
so
the
your director or C-level.
Or also the users of the product.
Okay, good.
Because you can really get feedback on the product from different levels and angles, and you need to understand what are their needs, and sometimes kind of with the business understanding you have also guide them through an answer that maybe they didn't thought of, right? So for example, my product is demand forecasting, right? And then what I heard throughout my career, because I did demand forecasting for quite a while, demand forecasting is you basically predict what the sales will be, and on the base of that you decide how much to buy for the business, and then you hear these answers like, well, what I need is a faster Excel. You realize, well, because obviously if someone is really an expert in their field and they are not in touch with the new technologies and with the innovation, you think in your box, right?
Exactly.
And so you just want a better version of the tool that you're already using. But your job as a product manager is to make them understand that there are different technology stacks that you could use to do your job faster, and to be more accurate also in your predictions. So obviously we can talk about it in another session, but it's also understanding that need and guiding them through what they understand, right?
So kind of like acting as a change manager as well, like, hey, you didn't think of the solution, but actually what my team is building is going to save you time and energy and it's going to give you better results.
Exactly.
So also that part.
So this is, I would say, you need to have the technological understanding, you need to have the business understanding, you need to also be a person who is quite influential and persuasive.
Right.
Because
a lot of leadership skills, perhaps.
A lot of leadership skills, and also be very patient because you will need to repeat things a lot over time. It's just a bit of a sales role as well.
Yeah, you gotta sell to the stakeholders, but also to your team, like, why are we doing this or why are we not doing this? So it's always this balance where you have to be really charismatic so that you make everyone happy.
Exactly. And you need to be really good also at prioritizing tasks, because you can end up having different projects at the same time. Really good at prioritizing the development backlog as well. So the new developments that you need for the product, and also understanding what is the impact of each. So estimating also how much money you're going to bring to the business with each new development or with each new product that you want to bring to the market, and then decide what comes first.
Exactly. So it sounds like no matter how technological you get or how you work with really tech products, business comes first, and value to business always has to be in mind to take decisions.
Exactly. Obviously, I want to make a point here that is, yes, business comes first and everything should be kind of guided towards having an impact on the business, but you really need to do all this together with your product team, meaning with your engineers, with your developers, with your designers, whatever team you have, depending on the product you're building, because it has to be feasible. You need to have the technology to build the product, because in the end of the day, if you cannot build it,
it won't bring anything to the business.
Exactly. So I always say that when you develop a product, you need to look at 4 risks. The first one is, okay, well, does it bring value to your customers? The second one is about usability. Is it easy to use? Like, what is the consumer journey? And then the third one is feasibility. So can you actually build it from a technical perspective? And then the fourth one is business risk. Like, do we have the resources to actually do it, both financially and in terms of capacity?
How on earth do you keep up with all of those new technologies? What are your tricks and tips for everybody that's listening? How do you keep up?
Yeah, good question, because you can be overwhelmed.
I am overwhelmed.
Everything, like there is so much every day coming up.
Yeah.
But first of all, remember, you don't need to be an expert in everything, right?
Good point.
Focus on your field of expertise, because that's what you can offer in your company and later on if you move around. And then what I do to keep updated in LinkedIn, I use a lot of LinkedIn.
Okay.
So every morning before I start work, I do a scroll, let's say, of the feed page on LinkedIn, and I follow people that help me,
obviously,
be up to date. So for instance, there are 2 guys that I follow. One is Aakash Gupta. He's a product expert, but he writes a lot about AI and new technologies and so on. So, and especially how can you apply AI and the new developments in the field into potential products, what is happening with Google, generative AI, what is happening with all the plugins they're doing now for ChatGPT and so on and so forth. So everything around that. And also I follow Aadit Sheth. He's a guy who does a lot of prompt engineering suggestions.
I love that one. I know which one you mean, yeah.
For the people who don't know what prompt engineering is, it's so he helps you to understand how to use ChatGPT at its best.
Yeah.
So
how to talk to the machine.
Exactly. So if you, let's say, want to fix your CV, he gives you a few tips on what you should write to ChatGPT in order to get the best CV possible. But anyways, he sends a newsletter, and also Aakash Gupta actually. So the one from Aakash Gupta is called Product Growth. The one from Aadit Sheth is called Prompts Daily. And they give you a lot of updates on what's happening in AI. And that's just a hint for me to know, oh, this is happening, keep it in mind. Maybe deep dive in it if you need it. Yeah. Maybe not. At least you're up to date with
and you're aware of what's going on. You're gonna have all of these resources in the comment section so that you don't miss anything. Okay, so I have another quick question for you. In your experience or for your use of data science, what is your favorite tool or programming language?
So for me, it's Python.
Yeah, okay.
For data science, but also for data analytics. It's just that you can also use Excel for data analytics. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Python allows you to automate a lot of things. It has a lot of libraries that are open source, so you can really use. There is a lot going on in the industry, and open sources that you can use and are continuously updated to get the latest and greatest for your machine learning models. I would say Python, but I have to say also SQL. For me as a product manager, I don't use a lot of Python nowadays, so I used to use it a lot when I was in advanced analytics. But as a product manager, I use SQL mostly because I do queries to do quick analysis. Like what is happening with the business, or what's the impact of our product on the business. So in order to get that understanding, SQL is better. So I query data from the databases, and then I just tweak and twist them the way I need it.
No, I also love Python. I mean, I think Python is such a beautiful language in the way that it's presented. Like, it's like almost you're talking to the computer giving him orders. So I love it. SQL is actually my personal favorite. So awesome, we're super in line with this. A more tricky one. Obviously, we're women in data, and according to the most recent stats, at least in Spain, but I know this is throughout Europe, it's this whole same trend. Only 3 out of each 10 people working in the industry are actually women. I would like to ask you, like, from your point of view, have you seen any recent evolution or improvement in the way big data is fostering inclusivity and diversity? Because we all know diverse teams are better performers, and having inclusivity is just better for the business as a whole, better for development, better for innovation. Have you seen any recent advances where you work, or maybe in the sector that you're in? Maybe perhaps in the Netherlands, this is more advanced than in Spain. What is your perspective there?
I think things have improved, but there is still a long way to go.
Okay.
The difference I see is that the teams are more diverse, not only in terms of gender, but also nationalities, and all sort of...
Even backgrounds, no? Like you come from a completely different background.
Exactly. So I see that there is a tendency nowadays to build more balanced teams in terms of diversity, because, they have better results. It's been proven over the years. I do think though that the higher you go up in the ladder, the smaller the percentage of diverse people, especially women. Obviously I talk about women because I'm a woman and I do struggle with this sometimes. It's just that there is still a very little representation of women at the top. And I think this is a mix of different things. Probably one of the most important ones is that you have few women at the top that can inspire you and be role models for you.
So you have no one to look up to, really.
Exactly. And I think the struggle is especially when you want to build a family. If you don't have a support system that can help you to balance that, right? I think it can be tricky.
Super tricky.
So this is one. But also, besides the family topic, I think even if, just being yourself, single or whatever status you're in, it's difficult because when you're only surrounded by men, it's just little things like maybe the background, the culture is different, maybe what you like, what you talk about, the interest, it's different. So one of the key things to be successful at the top of a company, especially a big company, is to have a good network and to be good at politics, right? You need to navigate the politics of the company.
Yeah.
You need to know the people, because then whenever you want to take an action, get budget, fund an idea, you need the support of other people. There is a very complex approval system there. So if you don't have a strong network, you don't have people next to you, it can become tricky. And I think when there are more women, you probably have the thing of understanding each other better, understanding your needs better, also having interests that you share. Maybe you build a relationship outside of the workplace, right? So I think obviously it's a mix of things, but this has an impact.
Okay. No, absolutely.
Also the way you behave in meetings.
No, we're
mix of personalities,
We're different. That's for sure.
Exactly. Like they tend to say that, women maybe in meetings also they're not as talkative, not as outspoken.
Yeah.
So if you stay in the back a little bit more, not because you don't have an opinion, but just because you first listen and then you say what you want to say, that can be maybe perceived as bad from someone who is not coming from the same perspective, from the same background.
It also depends on who's listening to that. Like, is it a person that, is it only waiting for a show up or a show off, or is it somebody that really wants to hear valuable contribution to the conversation?
Exactly.
It all depends on who's on the top, listening and watching.
Exactly. But this is a big topic. I don't want to stereotype it because, then we get into a completely different conversation. I'm just saying that having more women at the top would help and cascade down into the organization to create a more women-friendly environment.